How's everyone doing? I'm Sam Sherman, alongside my colleague Mary Prado, here for the the Daily Illini Sports Illinois football post-game vidcast, I guess is what we're calling it. Well, I'm calling it that. I don't know what we're actually calling it.
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, Illinois came out victorious today by a score of 42-34 over the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Eric, do you want to talk a little bit, just recap the game for the fans out there?
Yeah, I mean, it was they got off to a fast start, which was surprising. The defense stopped the Hilltoppers, and then Westline drove the offense down there. They scored within 3 plays. So that was the fast start that they wanted, but they again sputtered. Things were looking bleak. They're putting up points, but not convincingly, I guess you could say. A couple turnovers. Ferguson had a couple drop passes. Things weren't clicking. And then again after halftime, something just clicked, and Westlawn went on to have a career high game. 456 passing yards, 3 TDs. He had an interception. They put up points, and they ended up winning 42-34. So I mean, it was kind of like a roller coaster. It was up fast, down low, and then bam, up high again. And the offense again. I mean, I almost carried the team. Almost, I say, because they put up the points. Mm-hmm. But the defense also held them.
Yeah, and it's funny, you talk about Lent having a career game, and actually he took over a former quarterback spot and wanted to say what that was.
Yeah, so I mean, in Lent's second career Illini start, he passed for 456 yards, and that is more than Nathan Shieldhouse passed for it all in his career. So Shieldhouse's career high was 450 yards, and in Lent's second start ever for the Illini, he passed that.
I think the interesting thing about that is, there was a point in this game when I think a lot of Illinois fans were concerned, and that was already into the second half of the game.
Yeah.
So when you talk about that and your quarterback still comes out and has a career game, it's pretty impressive. I think you've got something.
No, definitely. And considering the fact that Lunt was at 70% completions, 35-50, and it was just amazing that I just think it was amazing that he completed 70% of his passes and passed that amount of yards. Because, like you said, there was that point in the game where people were kind of doubtful. I mean, here you have this guy going, 70% is more than what average quarterbacks pass for completion-wise. So I mean, here he is, slinging it, and he had that one drive where they're just driving down the field, throwing it to Dudek, Malik Allen, Allison, guys making catches, everything's clicking. Then they had that turnover, so that kind of set things back, and you could see it. But then they regained their composure and whatnot.
It's all about that composure.
Yeah.
That's been so impressive with Lentz so far. I mean, only 2 games into his Illinois career, and he's kind of shown that kind of late game.
Right, and that was something that they needed to balance out the defense, because like you said earlier, the defense held their own. Considering what the Hilltoppers did last week and what they were doing this week. The defense forced 3 turnovers. The biggest was the Taylor Barton 77-yard interception return for TD. Then 2 other forced fumbles. But I mean, just looking at the defense throughout the day compared to last game and then last year, what's sticking out to you?
I mean, you said it, but really turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that turnovers were something that this Illinois team didn't do last year. I mean, 11, but it's not a lot. It's very little. And I mean, aside from that, just they're passing the eye test for me, because you're watching them out there, and I know they haven't gotten into Big Ten play yet, but you watch these guys and they got a couple of big stops for them on the at the goal line when Western Kentucky was threatening to put some more points up on the board, and those are things that they didn't do last year. They just didn't. And so to see those stops and to get 3 turnovers in the game, some impressive ones at that, is definitely something that they're looking to see this year.
Yeah, I would even say that their gap discipline is a lot better. I mean, Western Kentucky, they were pretty balanced last week, running and throwing the ball. I mean, lean more heavily on the pass, but their guys still put up over 100 yards. But it just seemed like the defensive linemen are just playing a lot more discipline. Like last year, you just had opposing running backs just gash through them. It was like they couldn't even get an arm on them. This time, I mean, there was a couple decent runs Western Kentucky had, but nothing like last year. Just like, what are you guys doing out there? So I think, being said, they're studying the opposing offenses, not so much learning the schemes, learning where to line up and things like that. So I guess it's the evolution of a defense, and that's something you would want to see. Considering they were all young a year ago.
Exactly, and they were younger. They're growing together, and they also got some added pieces in there as well. And those things are all starting to. Again, this is nowhere near, and they've all said it. They're nowhere near that finished product that they want to be.
Definitely.
But there were some good signs for them out there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, defense is definitely a good sign. But one of the bad signs through 2 games so far is the lack of a rushing game. Here we have Donovan Young and Josh Ferguson, 14 carries apiece. Young had 51 yards first and 42. This has to be somewhat concerning. They cannot keep it up, leaning so heavily on one to carry them, especially when they enter Big Ten play and the weather starts to, degrade, gets worse. And,
you can't be slinging it all over
exactly.
the field.
You go up against, Ohio State, Wisconsin.
It's not going to work.
Exactly.
It's just not going to work.
Exactly. What do you think the offense? Is this something about? What do you think the struggle is? Is it just Cuba's not calling plays? Is it the 2 running backs themselves, the offensive line, or why aren't they getting?
I want to say it's just that there's not enough plays being called for him, because when you're looking back to last year when they gave Ferguson the ball enough times, he made things happen. Whereas, and because they had a couple nice running plays in the game today, they're not really establishing anything to make him where the team is thinking like, this rushing attack is really a big time threat. So they can really focus a lot on the receivers, and that's why it is nice to have for them it's nice that they have a guy like Westland who can get it to those guys. But like you said, when the weather starts to change and they get in a more difficult play, it's going to be a lot harder, and they're going to need to really start establishing that ground game.
Yeah, and Beckman touched on this. He did say that he does believe his team is past the set up the run team. But at some point, they has to become more balanced.
Yeah. I think for them to find some more success this year, it's actually going to have to change in that way.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see how things turn out next week. And if you don't know, next week they travel to Washington to take on the Huskies, which I guess you call it a rematch from last year when Washington beat them. But this time it's at Washington. That should be an interesting game.
Yeah.
Granted, it's their first big road game of the year. Washington has a totally new staff with the hiring of Boise State's Chris Peterson. They lost Bishop Sankey. He was a big threat to them last year, and so I don't know. They realistically, the Illini have a good start 3-0.
They could. It's going to be tough, and I think it's just especially because it's on the road and you're going up against a team that was ranked at some point this season.
They fell out of them.
Yeah, but I think the best thing for them is that it's going to be a great test for them, just to see really where they're at. It's nothing against Western Kentucky or even Youngstown State, but I think it'll be that thing that'll really say, well, how good are these guys?
Yeah, definitely, I agree. So for Sam Sherman, I'm Eric Prado, and this is the Daily Illini Vidcast, the football Vidcast after the Illinois football team defeated the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers 42-34.